Today, June 19th, or Juneteenth, is now an official state holiday. Governor Lamont signed a bill into law earlier this month in front of a replica of the slave ship the Amistad, which was docked in New London. Juneteenth commemorates June 19th, 1865, when federal soldiers went to Galveston, Texas, to tell the slaves they were free. That was 2.5 years after President Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves on January 1st, 1863.
It is imperative that my generation recognize the significance of this day and realize that it is much more than a day off. It is set aside to commemorate the freedom of African American people.
I know if we all work together, we'll have a better community, a better state, a better world.
Juneteenth was designated as a federal holiday when President Biden signed it into law on June 17th of last year. Joining us now to talk more about Juneteenth is David Hopkins. He is in charge of the Urban League of Greater Hartford. David, good to see you again.
Good to see you, Dennis. Thank you. Yes.
So first of all, tell us what the Urban League actually does, because I know it serves much of the state.
Right. Indeed. Yeah, most people know the Urban League as a national brand, of course, and they identify it as a civil rights organization, most times in tandem with the NAACP, because we have similar missions in terms of that civil rights agenda. But the Urban League differentiates itself, and it happened somewhere in around the early 1960s under the leadership of Whitney M. Young, where the Urban League focused more on economic empowerment, identifying education, jobs, housing, health, and of course social justice as ways to move the community forward and empower it to be equitable in other spaces.
So we just heard a little bit about the history of Juneteenth, but what does it mean exactly?
Yeah, Juneteenth, I think it means a lot of things. And we think about, we go back to Frederick Douglass, you know, a person who earned their own personal freedom. He, a great orator, and he said, you know, in one of his speeches, what to the slave is July 4th. So many people, particularly the Black American community, identify Juneteenth as the actual day of freedom and liberation for the United States, because it's the part of the country's history where the Black American community was actually included. And so when you think about that, it's a celebration of what otherwise has been something that's been neglected in history.
And so the young woman we interviewed earlier said, you know, it's not just a day off. And a lot of people use holidays as days off for barbecues and family time. Nothing wrong with that. But what should people be doing on Juneteenth? How should they celebrate?
Well, I think in some parts that is in part what they should be doing, because again, so many things in Black history is juxtaposed to some form of contention of history that has been excluded or hidden. And Juneteenth is perhaps one of those things that is actually something to be celebrated. So, you know, the tradition is things of red colors. So you do red velvet cake, you do red pop. You know, so those are things that are part of the celebration, if you will, of Black history, of Juneteenth. But I think the other thing you do is certainly recognize the fact that, you know, this is the point in time that puts a timestamp on when the Black American community was able to be celebrated among other members of the community.
And what should young children be taught about this day? Indeed,
I think you mentioned it earlier in the outset of your intro, is that it is the day that the enslaved humans, particularly those in Texas, were identified and notified that they were free. Otherwise, we didn't know anything about that, and so this day, again, is important because it is the day that we were liberated. And so nationwide and across the footprint of this United States, we can all celebrate together the value of this day.
David Hopkins of the Urban League of Greater Hartford, and as the city resident myself, we thank you all for the great work the organization really does.
Absolutely.
So we'll see you again, David. Thank you. Yep. Still ahead, the summer of 2022, a return to normal. We'll visit the Bushnell, where performances are making a return.